I would like to bring up my friend, Mobley, who just signed a record deal last night to Last Gang Records. Come on up, Mobley. Welcome, sir. How are you doing? Did you stay up late? What happens after you sign a record deal? Is there a late night involved with that?
I had to load out after the show, so
Oh,
yeah.
man.
It's a pretty late night, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. You feeling all right?
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us about Last Gang Records. Who else is on there?
I'm actually really excited to be on the label. I feel like I'm not cool enough to be on the label. They've put out records by Chromeo, Stars, Metric, Purity Ring, Death from Above, a bunch of my favorite bands. So
wow.
I feels weird to be on that label. Yeah.
Well, that's good. So I guess today's your first day, so you haven't done anything yet for the label. Are they here?
They're not here.
Okay.
They are running around New York, LA, Toronto.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens now? Do you have a record in the can, or do you? Because really quickly, Mobley writes, records, produces, mixes, and masters his own records so far, and does all the artwork. He's like a self-contained. So what are these guys even going to be able to do for you? I mean, hopefully they give you some money for it. Yeah.
I'm like 80% of the way through mixing the record right now. I actually got some help on a few of the tracks from Jim Eno.
Oh, awesome!
Spoon.
Yeah,
he helped mix some of them, so that was really surreal and fun. I think I just wrote the last song for the record last week, so I'll try to finish mixing it this week. Yeah.
All right. When you came on my podcast last year, you had just released Fresh Lies Volume 1, and you told me that you had thrown it away originally and gone back and done like all new songs, not just re-recorded the songs you did. You're not going to do that this time, are you?
I don't think I have time this time.
Do you have a release date and everything?
Not yet.
No?
We're doing you have to do this planning meeting where you take them the music and play it for them, and then everybody talks about what they want to do. So we're doing that in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
You excited?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I am. Yeah,
Good.
Very much so.
Good. Have you been on the road much this year?
A fair bit, not as much as last year, but I just went out and played a festival in California, and I've gone around, I can't remember. I've gone around a little bit though this year, yeah.
Yeah, you're playing Voodoo Fest this year with Guns N' Roses and Beck. And
near them.
Yeah. Well, you never know that you might run up on stage and do a song.
Yeah,
I've seen that happen before. Also, you were on the Swells Lights Out song?
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I've known those guys for a few years, and they sent me like the beginnings of this track, and I thought it was really good, and I was actually in LA at the time, and I had some studio time, so I went into a studio and started tracking stuff and sent it back to them, and they really liked it, and so we made a song together.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you produce other artists or write
I do.
with? You do?
I do. I co-produced that track.
Okay.
Dwight Baker also did production on it. But yeah, I produce for people all the time.
Who all have you done that? You might know.
Riders Against the Storm.
Oh,
I
yeah.
worked on some stuff for them.
Nice.
Blind Birds.
Those guys are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This artist named Love. My wife is telling me who else I've worked on. A bunch. It escapes me right now, but yeah, a bunch of like artists around here, and then some people in California as well.
All right.
Yeah.
As far as this next record that you're going to put out, the last record, Fresh Lies Volume 1, was you dealing with your relationship with this country?
Yeah.
What's the next? Is there going to be a focus like that to the next record, or? And how is your relationship with the country?
Complicated.
Okay.
Yeah, in an ongoing way.
I think we all have that right now.
Hopefully. Yeah, I think it'll deal with some of the same themes. For those of you who don't know, I'm calling my Fresh Lies series a song cycle. So I'm going to make a series of records that are all love songs that use the metaphor of a romantic relationship to explore my relationship with the country. So I think that a lot of these songs, I mean, that stuff is also important, but I don't feel as tied down to that format.
Right.
So I can be more direct in certain ways.
Sure.
I can talk about other things. So there's definitely still there's still some topical stuff in there, but it's a little broader in the scope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So having been a DIY musician up until last night, did you handle your own social media?
Mostly,
Do you?
yeah. Some people on the management team help a bit with it, but that's all in close coordination. So yeah, my hands are in it. Yeah.
So what do you? Because this is like the focus of this whole thing is marketing in the digital era as a
Yeah.
DIY musician.
Yeah.
What are the pitfalls that you've seen, or what are some of the good things that you've been able to sort of come across? Some advice you can impart to the others here.
About social media?
Just do on the doing it yourself thing.
Okay.
And like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a DIY, I still consider myself DIY.
Okay.
I will until like some big check comes along. We're not there yet. But I think managing morale and energy is really important. You'll a lot of times you're directed to look to these really successful people as who you should be emulating and aspiring to be like, but a lot of times that conversation leaves out, oh, well, they have this thing that you don't have, and they have these people helping them that you don't have, and if you try to chase that, you're going to burn yourself out, and you may do exactly the thing that you're supposed to do for 2 weeks, but if you can't do it for 5 years,
Right.
then what does it matter?
Right.
So I think, setting realistic goals, trying to hit the kind of benchmarks that people who are smarter than I am can tell you need to hit, but at the same time being like, look, I'm still just one person, and it's Wednesday afternoon, and I don't have anything to say, so I'm not going to post today. But then when I do have something to say, I'm going to look at the insights, and I'm going to make sure I post it at exactly the right time, and the engagement's going to be crazy because people can tell that I care about the thing that I'm saying, and we're making an actual human connection, which ideally is supposed to be the purpose of these things, making connections with other people. That's supposed to be the radical, transformative thing about social media,
Yeah. It's hard to gauge that stuff and to know what it is that if you're posting isn't too self-aggrandizing. There's a fine line is basically what I'm trying to say,
definitely.
between self-aggrandizing and self-deprecating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you just don't know which way to go.
Yeah.
Do you, you just kind of go from your heart?
I just try to be genuine, and I try to talk about what's interesting to me in a straightforward way, and I know that people are all basically the same. I mean, we're all different in ways, but we all have a pretty core set of needs and desires and interests, and so trying to speak to people on that level and in a way where it's like I'm not trying to game you. I'm not trying
Right.
to. I'm trying to sell you things in a way, but it's
Right.
it's first and foremost about a connection. Like if I could do music without making any money, I would gladly do that.
Right.
And I think conveying that to people in a genuine way, that you actually care about what they have to say back to you, and it's not just about, I need X number of comments on
Right.
this post. I think people can tell. I think people can really tell.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like you can tell? Yeah? All right. Do you mind if I open the floor up to some questions for you?
No, I'm done.
What?
No, we can do questions.
Anyone have any questions for Mobley? Okay.
Hi, my
Hi.
name is Kaylin. I'm a singer-songwriter in Austin. I'm kind of getting my start in the whole craziness of it all. What is the biggest piece of advice you would offer someone who's kind of like in that realm of like singer-songwriter, doing it kind of like all themselves?
Regarding
Just like regarding, I guess, like keeping true to yourself throughout it all, and just like, especially on social media, like how have you been able to, stay true to yourself and not like get lost in like the craziness of like the statistics and analytics and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I think for me, I mean, I remember when I first got on Facebook, when I first put the band on Facebook, and the first post that I made that got a bunch of likes, there was this like high that came from it, and I was like, I don't like how I felt about that. Like, I don't like the way that I interacted with that. It was like, this is like maybe like a 10% of the high that I get from writing songs. And if I weren't writing songs, I think I could get addicted to this feeling. And so at that point, I very much had to reorient myself to the thing and be like, okay, this is a tool that is primarily about, first and foremost, like I said, making connections with people who I'm genuinely interested in making connections with. And if I'm not, then maybe I need to have somebody else help me with this. And then in the second place, to let people know about the things that I'm doing. So I think in terms of staying true to yourself, just having a really clear eye to what you're saying and why you're saying it, and not just doing the perfunctory thing of, all right, well, now's the time to punch my Instagram clock and make my post, because I think that's pretty soul killing, both for you and the people who you subject to it.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
Thank you. No, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. What's the name of your project?
Kaylin Ann.
Kaylin Ann?
Kaylin Ann Music. Anyone else? Okay.
How's it going? My name is Derek. I play drums in a band here in Austin called Nightcap.
Cool.
My question revolves around having a lot of options on what you can do and thinking about what's the most value-added decision to go towards, because you have limitations based on whether it be financials or time or just resources with everything. And we all have this direction that we're trying to go, but then how do you know what's the right decisions to be making to get to that next step or whatever the goal might be?
Yeah, that's an awesome question that I feel like we're dealing with constantly. I think one of the biggest advantages that we have as independent or relatively independent artists is flexibility and agility. And so I think our approach to it is, you try to game it all out. You try to think, all right, these are my 4 options. This is the one that I think is really the one that's worthwhile. But these next 2 are pretty good as well. And then you put some time into the option A, but don't feel, as long as there aren't actual big sunk costs for the thing we're talking about, there's no shame in being like, well, this isn't working, or it's not working the way that I thought it would, so let's scrap it and go on to the next thing, because you're not some big corporation who, it's going to take you 5 approvals from people in 10 different departments to make some change. So I think just remembering how flexible you actually are, and remembering how relatively low the cost of a lot of your decisions are.
Yeah, for sure.
And having the humility to be like, well, I got it wrong, and I'll try something else.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're playing next, is that right?
Playing next,
Cool.
Nightcap.
Awesome.
Yeah. Guys, make sure you stick around. Anyone else have any questions for Mobley? Nope. All right, good. Then we can just finish talking ourselves.
Awesome.
So how do you think this is going to change, like the whole, you're going to have a department of marketing behind you now.
Yeah.
Do you stay involved in that yourself? I mean, you seem like a guy that doesn't let much go by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of we've had a bunch of different label conversations, and the reason that we ended up going with Last Gang was it was so immediately clear, as compared to a lot of the other people we talked to, that they really, really care about the art that they put out, and they really care about artist development.
Yeah.
So we're going to be intimately involved. They, the way that they, both in the meetings and in the contractual stuff, language, it was very much like, this is your show, like we're
Good.
We're here to help you and give you our expert advice, but it's very much going to be this creatively the same thing as it's always been.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything else going on? I mean, what happens now? Like, what do you do this week? You have a lot of You have to talk to your lawyer a lot, or that already happened?
That already
for weeks?
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Now you sit down. It's
That's
very
over.
expensive when
Yeah.
that's happening. Yeah.
So now I'm finishing the record. I make the records at my house, so I'll go to my living room / studio and sit with the guitar or a bass or whatever and try to finish this last song that I'm trying to push over the edge, and then we'll take it to New York for a meeting with the label and
See what they say.
see what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, man. Is there anything that I'm missing today? Does anybody else have any questions? We have just a couple more. Okay. Whoa.
Where were you?
Yeah, where were you guys last time? Now I got to walk back out here all Phil Donahue style. Does anyone know who I'm talking about when I
Oh my
say Phil
gosh.
Donahue? Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi,
It's not mine.
My name is Crystal. I'm a singer-songwriter and artist as well, and I just kind of want to understand more like the beginning of your journey.
Sure.
Because the struggle is real of wearing so many hats, and the fact
Yeah.
that you produce your own stuff and mix and whatnot. I'm kind of trying to do that as well. That's not my forte.
Sure.
So it's this weird balancing act of just not trying to have the art suffer, but also trying to produce good stuff. And I just want to hear more of the beginning of your journey,
Yeah.
how your day-to-day was and how you were able to kind of build up to that more.
Yeah,
than,
no, that's
the
a great
stuff that
question.
we don't see, because
Yeah.
I want to know that.
Yeah. No, that's a fantastic question. I mean, my experience of it was basically, so first of all, I would say I would strongly advise you to not do what I did. If you can avoid it.
Okay.
No, seriously, it's just producing and mixing, engineering, programming, all the other things that I do are different arts. It's a completely different art form from writing a song. And not everybody's interested in it, and not everybody's going to be good at it. My experience was I'm an extremely detail-oriented person to a fault. And so I tried to mix with different people, and it just drove me insane to be like, well, you're missing this, and you're missing this, and you're missing this, and I don't know how to do what you're doing, but I can hear that you're doing it wrong, or at least wrong for me. And so the result of that was years and years and years of, all right, I tried to find somebody to do this, and I didn't like the way anybody else did it because it didn't get the thing out of my head into the world. So now I have to spend 3 years figuring out how to mix this record that I hear in my head that I want to put out. And so if you're interested in it, I love mixing. I love engineering. I love producing and all that technical stuff. My day job when I wasn't doing music full time, I used to be a programmer. So I love getting into the nitty gritty and sitting in front of a computer for hours and hours and solving a problem. But sometimes that can distract from making the music. You know what I mean? Sometimes it is good to just get in a room with somebody else who's the expert at that and let the ideas flow and have them be your hands. So I would say if you think that might be you, try to find somebody who you really work well with and who you can create with. But if not, now it's so much easier to find information on how to do that stuff than it was when I started. When I started mixing, YouTube didn't even exist. So you can find tutorials on all this stuff. You can the software is cheaper than it used to be, and it works better than it used to. So I would say don't be afraid to do it if you think it might be a thing you need to do. But also, there are people who are as passionate about mixing as you are about writing songs and performing. And if you can link up with one of those people and really mesh, that's going to be amazing too. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as a DIY artist until at least yesterday, you already had a management team together and a lawyer. I just wondered how you came to that decision and when that happened.
It happened really slowly and organically. On the management side, I had a friend of mine who was helping me with some various things, sent my music to a local promoter in town. And I don't even know if he was doing management at the time, but he really liked the record that I was working on, and he asked if he could be my manager. And so I had an independent manager up until I mean, he's still on the team, but up until last summer. And then last summer, I was in New York playing a show, and some people came up to me after the show, and they're like, "We're with C3 Management. We want to sign you." And so we took a couple months to think about it and ended up signing with them, and that's been fantastic. And then the lawyer, it's a really funny story. We had so the guy who was working on our deal just also did the deal for the biggest song in the country. I'm not going to say what that song is, but he's a really big deal lawyer, and I just didn't like him. Like, I didn't like him on a personal level. And so I ended up being like, well, there's this guy who was in bands like 5 years ago. We toured together. I know he went to law school. We always got along. I thought he was really smart. I called him up, was like, hey, can you help me with this deal? And he did, and it was fantastic. And so it was just all organic, you know, like meeting people, caring more about how I connected with them on a personal level than what they can do for me. That was a mistake I made a lot early on. I've had a couple of really bad managers where it was like, oh, well, they did this thing and they did that thing, but I didn't have any kind of trust in them on a personal level, or we didn't have that chemistry. And it doesn't really matter what somebody can do for you if you can't work with them, you know? So it was all very organic and slow, and very, very slow.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
If it means anything on your team, and you might agree, in the last 25 years, I've had about 5 or 6 managers, but only 1 lawyer. So it's the same guy still. So they're the important one, because they're the one that's gonna. I mean, they're gonna get you out of whatever thing you're in.
Yeah.
So, man, Mobley, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's always great to talk to you. If you're interested, I actually went back and listened to my own show with Mobley from last year. It's episode 691 of How Did I Get Here? And it actually is a great, great conversation. And you are a fascinating and very, very thoughtful. I keep on saying that, and I noticed I said it a lot in the thing. But you put a lot of thought into what you do and a lot of care, and it shows.
Thank you very much.
All right? You can find him at mobleywho.com. I'm Johnny Goudie. Thank you, guys.